Hi guys, welcome to week 8 of History 1302. It is the final week, so you guys are almost complete with the course, so congratulations. This week you guys will need to submit your discussion and your weekly quiz, your journal entry. You will have a final exam that is set up the same as the midterm exam with your multiple choice, 2 short answer, and an essay, so make sure you have time for that. And you'll also need to submit any remaining assignments that you have not yet submitted. As you're working on things, if you have any questions or need any help with anything, send me an email or a message. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help you. So I'll go ahead and introduce where I am. Right now, I am at the Air Force Memorial in Washington, D.C. You can see these spirals behind me. They're really tall, so it's kind of hard to see. And then there are statues behind me there for the Air Force. And I'll take you over here, and you can see behind me here, let's see. Oh, it's kind of difficult to see, but Arlington National Cemetery is over there right behind me. But I am here today because I want to talk about the Pentagon, and this is probably one of the best views of the Pentagon in the city that I can get, since I can't go right up to it. So I'll turn around and you guys will be able to see right there is one side of the Pentagon, and you can see the Washington Monument. Oop, I'm bad at pointing with this. Right there, and the Capitol building is also in the distance, so it's a pretty good view of DC, even though DC has a lot of low rises, so it's difficult to get a great view. But the Pentagon is behind me, and I wanted to talk about the Pentagon today and the 9/11 attacks, and specifically the construction of the Pentagon and how that helped limit the impact of the 9/11 attacks on the Pentagon, and kind of how it was built and all of that. So we'll talk a little bit about that with it behind me there, if you can see it. I think that's a good spot. All right, so you all are probably very familiar with the September 11th attacks in 2001, the series of 4 coordinated attacks by the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. Overall, in 9/11, there were 2,977 fatalities. It was the deadliest terror attack in human history. There were over 25,000 injuries, long-term health consequences, over $10 billion in infrastructure damage. It was a massive attack, as we all know. We know that there were, of course, the 2 flights that hit the World Trade Center in the towers in Manhattan. You had UA Flight 175 and American Airlines Flight 11, and then Flight 93, United Airlines Flight 93, of course, was the terrorists were overtaken by the passengers, and they crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. American Airlines Flight 77 is the one that crashed behind me in the Pentagon. Now, it didn't crash in the side that you're seeing. It's on the opposite side of the Pentagon. So it's not this side, but it'll give you a good idea. But American Airlines Flight 77 left Dulles Airport, which is in DC. It's about 30 miles west of the Pentagon, headed towards LA. 35 minutes into the flight, the hijackers took control of the plane, turned around when they were over maybe West Virginia or so, and turned it around and flew into the western side of the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m. When the plane hit, it was over 82 metric tons of weight, going over 530 miles per hour. So it was obviously a very devastating crash, and it was the first significant foreign attack on Washington's government facilities since the British burned the city during the War of 1812. 64 people were on the plane that died, and that included retired military officers, a group of school children that were going on a field trip to California, and then 125 people inside the Pentagon died, which is a very small number compared to the number of people that work in the Pentagon and those that died in the World Trade Center attacks. And it could have been a lot more, and the construction of the Pentagon really helped limit the number of people that died there. So we'll go over that a little bit. So 18,000 people worked in the Pentagon at the time of the terrorist attacks on 9/11. 800 people were working on the western side of the Pentagon, which is the side that was hit, and that was a lot fewer than normal because that side had just undergone renovations, and only about 25% or a handful of people had moved back into their offices at the time of the attack, so it was largely empty. If another side had been hit, up to 4,500 people could have died based on the number of people that were in those areas. So ironically, the Pentagon was hit on September 11th, 2001, and construction on the Pentagon began September 11th, 1941, before we entered World War II. President FDR is the one that decided that the Pentagon needed to be built. He knew that he would need a home base for military operations with the war. Even though we weren't in the war in World War II yet, he knew that it was coming, and he needed somewhere close to DC for military operations. So because of the war, the Pentagon was built in record time, only 18 months, and it is the world's largest low-rise office building. It's only 5 stories tall, but it has 65 million square feet and about 26,000 workers in it at any time. So there you can kind of see it. It's just right through those trees, gray building with lots of windows. So, all right, so it's huge. As I said, lots of windows. There's over 7,000 windows, and the corridors within the Pentagon equal 17.5 miles. But it's built on a spoke and ring design where there are 5 different rings that go around, and then there are corridors that connect those rings and spaces in between them. I'll upload a picture so you guys can see the design of it and kind of visually see what I'm talking about, because it's kind of hard to explain. But because of the spoke and wheel design, it only takes about 7 minutes to walk from the 2 furthest points in the building. So it's designed really well. So the reason why it held up so well in the terrorist attack when the planes hit it was that it is built almost entirely out of reinforced concrete, including concrete ramps that connect the 5 floors. And that concrete is reinforced with connecting and spiraled rebar, which kind of held up the building after the plane hit it, kind of like a clothesline would hold up clothes, where the structure and the concrete was destroyed and wasn't there, but it held, the rebar held everything up. And rebar was used for the Pentagon in the construction, and it was reinforced because the architects didn't think that it would be used as a military headquarters or as an office building after World War II was over. So they reinforced everything, thinking that it would turn into a place for record storage, and they wanted to make sure they could hold the weight of a lot of paper and a lot of records sitting on the floor for a long period of time, since that can be very heavy. So they reinforced it with that spiraling, overlapping rebar that ultimately was able to suspend that crushed concrete like the clothesline, like I said. So let's see. When the plane hit on September 11th, 26 of the first floor cement columns that hold up the building on the west side were completely destroyed, and 15 others were damaged by the fire that was created. But the upper floors of the Pentagon didn't immediately collapse, again because of that clothesline effect that rebar created. So the plane hit on the first floor, and the other ones stayed for about a full 30 minutes before that first ring collapsed, which allowed people in floors 2 through 5 to get out. That 30 minutes was enough time for them, for the other survivors to escape. So not one Pentagon worker was killed in the collapse of floors 2 through 5. In that 30-minute time period, they were still able to get out. Upper sections, again, only collapsed after there was severe fire damage. So aftermath of 9/11 attacks, I know a lot of you guys know this, a lot of you guys have experienced this, and you guys are reading about it, but I'll go over it quickly. There in the United States, of course, we had the immediate responses of police and fire working to find survivors, working in healthcare to get people out of the rubble, out of the attacks, and get them healthy, get them checked out. There was also an increase in hate crimes in America on Muslims and South Asians in the days following the attacks. Sikhs were also experienced a rise in hate crimes, specifically because the turbans that Sikh men wear is inaccurately associated with Muslims. It's stereotypically associated with them, I guess. There were attacks on mosques, assaults on people, and 24 members of Osama bin Laden's family who were in the U.S. were evacuated out of the country on a private charter plane by under FBI supervision 3 days after the attacks. Nations across the globe, of course, offered their support and their camaraderie with America. They condemned the attacks. Middle Eastern countries all condemned the attacks, including Afghanistan, with the notable exception of Iraq, who issued an official statement that said, quote, "The American cowboys are reaping the fruit of their crimes against humanity." Pakistan, which borders Afghanistan, closed its borders with Afghanistan because there were many Afghani refugees fleeing into Pakistan for fear of U.S. retaliation. So they closed their borders into Pakistan. The U.S., of course, set up Guantanamo Bay, but the legitimacy of that detention center and their treatment of inmates has been questioned by both the European Union and many human rights organizations. And then, of course, on October 7th, 2001 was when the war in Afghanistan began, with the U.S. and British bombing of targeted Taliban and Al-Qaeda camps, and with the ground invasion by U.S. Special Forces. And the war on terror, of course, has lasted over 19 years. So that's just a quick discussion on the construction of the Pentagon, 9/11 attacks, the aftermath. It's very quick, and I hope you guys were able to see it. This is the best shot that I could get here, and I'll walk out so you can kind of see the Air Force Memorial in a better view of Arlington before we end for the semester. And again, as you guys are working, if you need anything at all you need to do is send me a message, and I'll be quick to respond and help you out any way I can. So there's the Air Force Memorial. There's the 2 spokes. There's a third one back there that's hiding behind one of the other ones. And they have some plaques, and then back towards the end over here, it backs up with Arlington. Shall walk you to, and then we'll say goodbye. All right. So if you guys are able to see behind the trees, it's Arlington National Cemetery. All right, guys, it's been a wonderful semester. Keep up the hard work. You're at the finish line. So just do what you got to do, and I will see you guys later. Bye.